let's turn to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now,
Speaking of sad guys,
I'm an idiot. Like, I just picked the wrong damn time to bet on the Steelers because they were 8.5 point underdogs. I saw that. I haven't loved how the Bucs have looked throughout the first part of this year, and I was like, okay, 8.5 seems a little rich, but I'm not touching that because they've burned me way too many times this year. And look at that. The Steelers come back, defeat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Chase Claypool played out of his mind. Trubisky came in after Kenny Pickett left for concussion protocol and went 9 for 12, threw a pretty nice touchdown pass, and they ended up winning the game. The issue that the Buccaneers have had all year is they've had a ton of trouble getting into the end zone. I don't. Do you mind looking up some of their offensive sequences as I wax poetically about, well, what's the inverse of waxing poetically? Waxing angrily about how Tom Brady is acting. But Brady did not practice on Wednesday, which seems to be something that he's been doing quite frequently. I understand that veterans sometimes do that, but this guy also took an 11-day absence in the middle of training camp to attend to his family. It's obvious that he's having marital issues, but he also went to a wedding for Robert Kraft on Friday, did not do the team walkthrough on Saturday, and then he flew on his private jet to Pittsburgh. Then when they weren't playing well, he was screaming at his offensive line in a very public fashion. Brady loves to scream at everybody but himself. I'm reminded of last year when he thought that he was on fourth down trying to save that game, and he held up four fingers. We all remember this. And then they lost, and when he was asked about it after the game, he said, no, I didn't get the downs wrong. I didn't get it wrong. Was that last year or was that the year they won the Super Bowl? I forget. But either way, then he comes out over the summer and was like, yeah, I got the downs wrong. And he makes a big joke about it on the shop or on his podcast where it's a controlled environment.
It
Yeah.
was October 2020.
Right. And so
Yeah.
then they won the Super Bowl and all is forgiven. All is forgiven. Accountability for thee, not accountability for me. That's Tom Brady in a nutshell at this point in his career. He wasn't like this fully when he was on the Patriots because of the culture that they instilled in people. But the reality of the situation is that he was able to force Bruce Arians out because he didn't like how Arians was a little loosey-goosey, wanted to have some drinks, wanted to relax, was in semi-retirement, and he wanted to run the team his way. Well, this is how the team is being run, dude, and you are not stepping up to the plate. I can't imagine the rage that I would feel in my bones as an offensive lineman trying to block for Brady, getting spittles in my eyes from this dude who isn't even around the team. I was in training camp. It's all right.
That was me looking up those stats. I guess it was an autoplay.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, to your point,
No, I
based
was
on
at training camp. I was at the practice all week. Who the hell are you to tell me? His ego is out of fucking control. Out of control.
but also to what I was looking at too is like, there's a reason why Leonard Fournette is getting a lot of run and getting a lot of touches and snaps, which is nothing against Fournette because Fournette's a good player and he's showed himself to be good in a good asset in the playoffs as well. But it's because Brady's clearly not A, he's not the number one option, but B, he is not when there is such a level of deficiency with the wide receiver room and rookies on the offensive line and young guys on the offensive line. The person that's got to step up and kind of override that or kind of supersede that is him, and it's clear that he's not doing that. And it's tough for those guys to feel super motivated or galvanized when what's being taken away from the game is him ripping his offensive line on the sideline to the point where it's getting picked up by mics.
And Todd Bowles, the head coach of the Tampa Bay Bucs, was asked about this after the game. We have a clip about of this question because I'd imagine that it would be difficult to be the head coach of a team where Tom Brady, he's such a legend, he's won so much that it's difficult to coach him. I mean, he's going to do what he wants. He's going to take off time when he wants, which is just so antithetical to everything we understood about Brady, who was like working the hardest, we heard, and always trying to hold the team accountable. Now he's just a different guy going to Robert Kraft's wedding. Belichick wasn't there. Um, Belichick was prepping, right? I mean, like doing his own thing, taking time off in the middle of training camp. It just, I would guess that that's quite difficult because you have to sell this to your team. And then that's the same guy who's screaming in your face and criticizing you, offensive lineman, who's been working your ass off all week, who hasn't taken a day off in I don't know how long. If you are taking a day off, it's after the game because you're trying to rest and recuperate your body. And so I would be immensely pissed if he did not have the immense cachet that he does, Tom Brady. This would be a massive problem. And I think he's teetering on the edge of uh, burning through that goodwill. Tall Bulls was asked about this after the game if Brady gets special treatment.
He works as hard as anybody, special treatment. There's been a few guys that missed some meetings and some practices for some special thing that just doesn't get publicized because they're not him. So kind of comes with the territory. You don't worry about it too much.
Is he as locked in as he's been in the past with you?
Yes.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. It's just obvious that he's not locked in. He's got a lot on his mind, but this is why you shouldn't have come back. You were not fully invested in actually being the leader of this team. And leading is not screaming at your offensive linemen when they do things wrong and you get sacked because you couldn't reach the receivers. I mean, it's not just on the offensive line that you guys can't get in the end zone and you're constantly kicking field goals and Ryan Suckup's having to bail you out. It's not just on them. It's actually on you, Mr. Four Fingers Up, getting the downs wrong. It is on you. And so part of it's probably because you haven't been practicing that much. I would be so pissed if I were a teammate of his and he was so unaccountable for all of his inabilities to actually make this team better and acting like he's the only one who's blameless. That's not competitiveness, right? And he was an amazing competitor for most of his career. And yeah, he was a whiny little bitch for a lot of it, but he ended up winning and he put in the work to justify that kind of, or at least excuse it, that kind of anger and passion. Now, what the hell are you doing? You don't have the right to speak that way to people. You just don't.
Yeah, and I think, and also I just think it's tough because it's like, it's not like all of these guys are scrubs, right? Like Tristan Wirfs is like an all-pro, like offensive lineman, and I just think it's hard to, like you said, it's just hard to shift all of the blame onto a guy like Luke Goedeke, who is like a rookie, a middle round rookie offensive lineman, who in his first NFL season, compared to, yes, Brady is 45 years old, but Brady is only 2 years out of winning a Super Bowl, and last year was the leading passer in the league. He might be rusty, and also obviously there was a reason why he felt like he needed to retire. But he's back, and people were allowed to have expectations of him. And even with his receiver room and the offensive line not being fully healthy, good teams get through and kind of and thrive, or at least survive in spite of injuries. It's unless this turns around and they stop losing kind of close games or low scoring affairs like this, it's kind of hard to blame anybody but the guy behind center, who for the strong majority of his career liked being the center of attention and also wanted all of the responsibility for winning to be on him.
This is your brand, so deal with the criticism. And the thing about it is like, I actually really respect the Patriots organization. I don't think that Belichick was complicit in Deflategate. I think that was all Brady, because that's really all what quarterbacks do, is they're the ones determining ball inflation. Like the coach is just not involved in that level of minutia, especially when you talk to them. So I respect what they've done, and so I'm not even a hater. I'm just calling it like it is. This guy's an unaccountable baby. And yeah, sure, he's won a lot of rings. Doesn't mean you're above reproach.